Hello and a very warm welcome to our look ahead to what the papers will be bringing us tomorrow. Joining me this evening, Rob Merrick, Deputy Political Editor of The Independent, and property and finance commentator Anne Ashworth. So let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages, starting with a picture of the Queen smiling on the front of tomorrow's Sunday Telegraph. It writes that the Duchess of Cornwall will be crowned Queen Camilla when Prince Charles ascends the throne. Camilla will be Queen, that is the headline of the Sunday Mirror, highlighting the monarch's announcement in her Platinum Jubilee message. The Observer writes that one of the Prime Minister's most loyal backbench supporters has said it's inevitable that Tory MPs would remove him from office following the Partygate scandal. Meanwhile, The Independent reports that Tory opponents of the PM are warning against submitting letters of no confidence too soon, instead urging them to wait until the result of the Met Police investigation into those Downing Street parties. The Express looks at what it calls the PM's survival plan, as Boris Johnson pledged to warm the cockles of Tory hearts. And away from Westminster, the Sunday Times reveals latest analysis shows teachers at some private schools at least doubled the proportion of A stars handed out at A-level last year during COVID. Well, Anne and Rob have been looking through the papers, so let's begin with the Sunday Mirror. And Camilla will be Queen. It says Camilla will be Queen. This after the statement from Her Majesty the Queen saying it is her sincere wish that Camilla will get that title when Charles becomes king. Rob, let's come to you first on this one. Your take on all of this.
I thought you might go to Anne first, because I know she might talk with a bit more enthusiasm about the royal family than I do. I suppose all I can say is, for those of us who think there's nothing dafter than having a hereditary system for a head of state, the only thing that would be dafter would be that the king would not be allowed to call his wife the Queen. I mean, that would just be absurd, wouldn't it? Just crazy. So I suppose either what's happened here is that it's been decided the passage of time has lessened any public antipathy to Camilla, so therefore the title of Queen is now acceptable, or else people have just woken up and realised it's absolutely crazy that the king is not allowed to call his wife the Queen. And undoubtedly Charles must be pleased about this, because it's no longer a decision for him. The decision's being made by the Queen that everybody respects. And so therefore it can happen far more smoothly. Whether it actually matters is another matter.
And this is something that royal watchers, I suppose, will have been wondering when it would be decided, how it would be settled, and what the outcome would be. And here we seem to have a definitive answer.
I think this really matters. It's a significant moment in the modern history of the monarchy. The current Queen, just ahead of the 70th anniversary of her ascension to the throne, is future-proofing the monarchy. That was thought previously that Camilla, when Charles takes the throne, would be known as the Princess Consort. But no, she will be known as Queen Camilla. And it's setting aside all the issues of the late Princess of Wales and all the other kind of soap opera elements of the monarchy, and saying it is important that Camilla be Queen, and it is in recognition of all her efforts in charities and supporting Prince Charles. So there is a very, very good reason why it's on so many of the front pages, because it's a story in which so many people will be really very interested.
It is on many of the front pages, and Anna, just to stick with you on this one, it also touches on the very poignant issue of the Queen thinking about arrangements for after she's no longer with us.
It is a very touching letter and very sensitively written, but it is quite clear she's a strategic thinker, the Queen. She is thinking of the arrangements that will work best when she is no longer with us, and maybe she'd be with us for a while yet, I do hope.
Indeed. Right, let's turn our attention to political matters. The Observer has the headline, PM's removal now inevitable, according to, well, if a loyalist of the Prime Minister is saying this, I mean, it seems that the clamour is getting louder and louder, Rob. What's your take?
Yes, that's undoubtedly the case. MPs will return on Monday. It'll be the first time they've gathered since the extraordinary number of resignations from the Prime Minister's top team on Thursday, which was just another indication of people who've lost faith in him and weakens him undoubtedly, and seems to bring forward the day when he'll face a leadership challenge. And that's obviously what he's trying to fight off. I suppose nothing is inevitable in politics. So Boris Johnson could survive to lead the Conservatives into the next election, but I think it's increasingly hard to see how that can be the case. Certainly most Conservative MPs struggle to see Boris Johnson leading them into the next election. It really is a matter of timing as to when the threshold of 54 letters is reached, which would trigger a no confidence vote. Whether that will happen in the next few weeks when Boris Johnson's chances of winning would be greater, you imagine, because some MPs are still waiting for the final Sue Gray report. If the figure isn't reached until after the Sue Gray report, we know how gory that is going to be, because we know that police are investigating criminal offences at parties where the Prime Minister was present. Then it would be far more dangerous for the Prime Minister to have the no confidence vote at that point.
The Observer's take is that it's inevitable. It's quite the opposite on the Sunday Times front page. You'll need a tank division to get me out of Downing Street, the Prime Minister tells his allies. It doesn't sound like he's very much fazed by these growing calls from his own side, Anne.
It is extraordinary, the language that the Prime Minister has employed this week. He's referred to the Lion King, he's compared himself to Othello, and now he is seeing himself as barricading himself into number 10, for you will need a Panzer tank to get him out. Now, it seems as if the Prime Minister is trying to carry out a reset. He's made two very big appointments today. Gito Harry as boss of communications, Stephen Barclay as chief of staff. Though quite how that will work out, nobody really knows, because is this man a minister or the Prime Minister's right-hand man? And those would seem to be very, very different roles. But it seems as if we're getting not quite the usual amount of bluster, more defiant talk from the Prime Minister. But I would suspect that a great many Tory MPs are having almost a dark night of the soul this weekend, because they have to ask themselves, and this is what I think they should be asking themselves if they're not, has the Prime Minister got the moral authority that he currently needs at a time of real problems, such as the massing of Russian troops on the Ukrainian borders and the signing of a pact between President Xi and President Putin, which are going to cause all kinds of problems coming up. We need a Prime Minister that has moral authority on the international stage. And for me, and I think for a great many other voters, Boris Johnson hasn't got it at the moment, and it is Tory MPs' job to make their minds up and act quickly.
Rob, what do you make of the Sunday Express front page? It talks about the bullish PM's survival plan, and it talks of warming the cockles of Tory hearts to do out with lefty policies and bring in ones that resonate more with the heart and soul of his party. What sort of thing do you think they're talking about?
Well, we know, of course, the Sunday Express is the Sunday Boris. They will be supporting him even when everybody else is no longer doing so. It doesn't explain, does it? It's hard to understand what the left-wing policies are. Perhaps they're referring to the climate change policies, the commitment to achieve net zero emissions by 2050, which is very unpopular with many members of the parliamentary party. He could try to weaken aspects of that, perhaps to just curry some favour with them. The story does talk about tax cuts, and of course that's a Conservative favourite. That's the sort of red meat that Conservative MPs really want to see. That's possibly, on top of the behaviour at the parties, the thing that Conservative MPs are most suspicious about. They don't consider Boris Johnson to be a real Tory. They do want to have this tax-cutting, deregulating approach. But of course, there's no money. Taxes are going up. They're not going down. We know that living standards are going down very quickly over the next few months. And even if money could be found for tax cuts before the next election, it might, A, be too late to save Boris Johnson, and B, is not really going to counterbalance the cost of living crisis that we face.
Yes. Meanwhile, those who are intent on removing the Prime Minister fear that timing is everything. And if they get the timing wrong, they could actually help entrench him in his position for longer than they would like. And this is on the front page of The Independent, isn't it? The concern about the way that the challenge rules work. Just explain that for us.
Well, it is quite interesting. There seems to be some concerns amongst those who would quite like Boris Johnson to go, is that it might be precipitate, that they will put in their letters, there will be a challenge made, the Prime Minister will be able to rebut it, and thus will remain for 12 months in an unassailable position. So there seems to be, in this great civil war that's happening in the Tory party, these vastly different opinions between these MPs, some feeling that there needs to be a strategy if they wish to remove him. But why don't they just work out whether they want to remove him or not? Because we've got a cost of living crisis coming, taxes are going up. That's one of the most things that surprises me about the front pages tonight. Why is there no mention of gas bills and all the other issues that are coming down the road for the British people, for which the Prime Minister needs to have an answer and needs to have a policy?
Indeed. We saw the energy price cap go up. We know that interest rates have gone up. National insurance will go up in April, as you say, and a lot of squeeze on people's budgets. Rob, forgive me if this is putting you on the spot a little. Is this just the rules of the Conservative Party's own leadership challenge? Because presumably at any point, the House of Commons, if they feel they get enough votes to have a vote of no confidence in the House, they could do that. The House of Commons can vote as often and whenever it likes on these matters, can't it?
Yes, of course, the House of Commons, as you say, can hold a confidence vote in the Prime Minister. That's what happened when Theresa May was Prime Minister. But of course, that's when the MPs of the governing party will rally around. They're not going to deliver that victory to the opposition. So that won't be a threat to Boris Johnson, even if Labour were to call that vote. As Anne says, under the rules of the 22 committee, if a no confidence vote within his party is staged and he wins it under the rules, another vote can't be held for 12 months. But let's remember what happened with Theresa May. She had a no confidence vote against her. She won it in December 2018. By June 2019, she was gone. So it's not the only mechanism that can, derail, to topple a prime minister. Other events can intervene. Cabinet ministers can resign. Other officials can resign. The prime minister can be caught up in other scandals. So I don't think we should get carried away with the idea that it's the only mechanism by which Boris Johnson would be removed.
Okay.
But certainly it's the most obvious one.
We've just got enough time to get to this story on the front page of The Observer. A major Tory party supporter is demanding £200,000 back in donations, saying he didn't get prizes that he had bid for. As vast-ranging as breakfast with the Prime Minister, a Japanese meal with Jeremy Hunt, and a magical show by former Defence Secretary Penny Mordaunt, who once worked as a magician's assistant. Anne?
This is a very interesting story. Mohammed Amersi, who gave £200,000, doesn't seem to have been invited to any of the parties he expected to, and he didn't see Penny Mordaunt give a conjuring show. Now, she used to work as a magician's assistant, but elsewhere in the papers, there's another very interesting story surrounding Penny Mordaunt, that she may be about to resign because she would quite like to launch a bid for the leadership. And it has several times been mentioned to me this week that she might be a person that a lot of Tory MPs could support. It just becomes more and more interesting, this total opera around who is going to lead the nation and the Tory party.
Rob, it seems bizarre for anyone to complain about not being invited to a party at the moment, given how toxic the idea of being at parties is.
I suppose one thing that occurs if there's anyone who can make the Prime Minister disappear, presumably it's someone who's got the skills of a magician's assistant. So maybe we should all be watching Penny Mordaunt most closely. But quite what this says, well, it says a lot, doesn't it, about the way that the Conservative Party gives access to people, that you can buy such bizarre events as a meal, a Japanese meal with Jeremy Hunt, as a Japanese wife. Whether not having breakfast with the Prime Minister might have been a lucky escape, I'd imagine, at the moment, because it may well involve throwing the cereal bowl and Boris Johnson asking, why does everybody hate me?
OK. Well, who wants any of those prizes when you can have the papers with Anne and Rob? And on that note, I thank you for your contributions this evening, and I thank you at home for watching. And with a wave of our wand, that is it for now. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.